Thanks. John distributed the minutes on Monday with the email. If anyone had a chance to review those, I would take a motion to approve.
That would have to be one of the docs.
I motion to approve.
Second,
Second the motion.
any discussion or edits? So without dissent, we'll take that with unanimous consent. Standing reports, program agency coordinator.
So we've begun working on the conference. Have a few lectures already set up. And we plan on doing that virtually this year, with everything else going on, unfortunately. But so far we have Fiona and Dr. Davidoff will be doing a lecture that they have done the last couple of years. I'm told that Dr. Talbot and Dr. Thompson will be doing a lecture. I haven't confirmed that yet, but that's what I'm being told. And I've also have LifeNet will be doing a lecture, and Mercy Flight have committed to a lecture. And Dr. Glick this morning committed to a lecture. So we're progressing pretty good. Just got to come up with the subject matters for those, and we can move ahead with those. Really, I'll keep it short and sweet. We've been working, that's the main focus right now, and besides dealing with the pandemic stuff. End of report.
All right, thank you. FLCC Administrator Program Director.
He wants you to give you your report. Dr. Talbot, why don't you skip her for right now?
Okay. There's Jack, are you on? There's the next on the agenda is the medical director for New York State DOH investigations list.
I am on. Lovely weather down here. I'm not sure what that item is, John. Do you have an idea what that item is?
I do. That happens to be the bad boy list. I can read that into the minutes right now.
Okay.
So we have Nicole Mills from Newfane, New York, for violations of 10 NYCRR Part 100, .16 A1, 2, and 9, and assessed a civil penalty of $2,000, and half of it was stayed, it looks like. Neil Tome from Port Chester, New York, for violations of 10 NY CRR Part 800.15, A2, 800.16, A1, 800.16, A9, and 800.16, A10. And his certification was surrendered. Diane Wagrick from Old Bridge, New Jersey, apparently had a dual certification. She was suspended or had violations of 10 NYCRR Part 800.15B and was assessed a civil penalty of $2,000. The Bensonhurst Volunteer Ambulance Service in Brooklyn was for violations of public health law 3006 1A and 10 NYCRR Part 800.21A, 21 P as in Paul, 6, 7, 11, 12, 13, and 800-23A. And looks like they were assessed a civil penalty and suspension for 1 year, and that suspension was stayed. And then finally, Nicholas Walker from Plattsburgh, New York, for violations of NYCR Part 800-15A2 and 800.3 A&M, civil penalty of $5,000. And that handles that.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
RSA committee.
Yes, hi. So our site committee met yesterday, and we're pleased to report that we have a date set for the 2021 RSI class. Currently, we have about 25 prospective candidates, and the class will be held in 2 parts. At least the didactic portion is what's been scheduled. It'll be in 2 parts, both via Zoom on January 12th and January 19th of 2021, which is a Tuesday. The first part of the class will be taught by members of the committee, including myself. I'll be looking for people to help me with that. And then the 19th will be taught by Dr. Siret, and part of that will be the a Q&A portion to go over some of the stuff. In the coming weeks, I sent out the formal applications to the RSI agencies for their medical director approval, and sent to John. A post-test will be coming out. We'll be sending out the literature hopefully 2 or 3 weeks from now, and then we'll be going from there. Once we complete the didactic portion of the class, we will look and see where we are COVID-wise and set up something for the practical. So we'll have more of that. Our next meeting will be January 11th, 2021, right by the beginning of the class. So we should have that ironed out. Also, coming up the end of the year, we're going to be sending out the provider and agency renewal forms. I'm asking that all the RSI agencies send out a current updated list of all providers, and then get those forms as well as the agency renewal forms signed by the medical director, have them to me, the committee, by January 11th, and then we'll give them out to REMAC at the next meeting. Other than that, that's pretty much what the bulk of the discussion was yesterday.
Thanks, Mike. On to advanced practice committee.
Looks like Mike froze.
Or things that we needed to do for from this body. And then we'll meet in January. I know some of the focus we wanted to do is talking about our regional refusal form, and probably updating that, and any other topics that we see or we to discuss in January. That's all I have.
Thanks, Mike. New York State Bureau of EMS rep.
Good morning, everyone. It's Ed Major. Obviously, our intense focus is on wave 2, which we're seeing significant spikes in COVID. We continue to do our best to come up with strategies related to utilization of scarce resources and ensuring that we have appropriate deployment plans and other components as we anticipate the second wave, being obviously significant more to the rural areas, which is going to impact our zones and not necessarily just New York City. So we're looking at the modeling, the statewide mobilization plans, and looking at opportunities for system augmentations and other components to that. We're seeing a lot of agencies doing nasal swabbing, working with counties on not only the Abbott machines, but other COVID testing. There is a bit of an approval process through the bureau. I'll share the process with John so he could send that out, or just have it so that if individual agencies are going to be working with counties or doing nasal swabbing testing, that they can go through that procedure so that we do get some data out of that. Other than that, we continue to maintain bureau operations. There's a lot of activity going on with enhancing the the testing and working with the contractor to make improvements to not only the signing up and getting the results and that kind of stuff, with the core sponsors to ensure that that process is smoothed out. There's been some delays in getting certifications out to individuals. We are only issuing certification cards to newly certified providers, and the rest can be verified through the health commerce system. So on the REMAC tech side, the CMAX EMSCO meetings are coming up. In addition to that, they're looking at vaccination plans and trying to incorporate that into the EMS provider scope of practice. So other than that, barring any questions, I don't think I have anything. Thanks for the time.
Ed, are those next meetings going to be remote?
They are, Matt.
Yes, yep, absolutely. And they should be, the links and everything should be coming out fairly soon. I think that the members actually, we're using a new model, which is called Boardable. I think it'll be the first time that we're using that for these upcoming meetings. So there's apparently some great enhancements with that. The jury's out on it because I haven't used it yet, but I think it's got some good functionalities. So I think a bunch of the invites went out yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, a good portion of them came out yesterday, and we've actually Boardable's been pretty decent for having some subcommittee discussions before we even have our subcommittee meetings next month. So it's working out pretty nicely.
That's good to hear, Jason. Thanks.
Thank you. Mercy Flight Central.
Oops, sorry about that. Only thing I have is we have an education event that'll be coming up January 13th, 6 p.m. to 9:30. We'll have 3 discussions, and that'll be coming out on Facebook and out via email within the next probably couple of days. But there'll be a BLS patient assessment, a discussion on obvious signs of death with the Onondaga County Medical Examiner's Office, and a cold trauma discussion by 2 of our providers. So that'll be coming out in the next short while for education opportunity. Otherwise, I don't have anything.
Thanks, Aaron. Yep. LifeNet, Guthrie?
Good morning. Nothing really to report other than we continue to work with in-network providers to sign agreements through New York State and nationally, and I believe we're 90% covered with in-network insurance providers now in New York State without being specific with any providers or numbers at that point. But we continue to work in that field and move forward there, and I think that's pretty much it. Look forward to working with the conference committee and building some education opportunities in February there.
Awesome, thank you. Dr. Osborne, Thompson Health.
Not much for us to report. We're still struggling with some patient volume issues. I'd be curious to know, just surveying the crowd, what the EMS call volume looks like these days. And then, of course, in the throes of all of this, we're continuing an impetus for our time-critical transports, namely related to our STEMIs and stroke and code LVOs.
Any input from the agencies on volumes?
Matt Sproul from Canandaigua Emergency Squad. Our volumes are increasing actually quite a bit, whereas compared to back in February and March, everybody I think saw into spring how the volumes dropped, but we seem to be getting more and more calls, and I'm not sure what anybody else is saying, but the calls actually seem to be actually increasing in difficulty in nature. Much more sicker people out there than there was back in the summer and spring with cardiac and stroke. That's all I have.
I would say Finger Lakes is pretty on par with that. We had quite the decline from month to month for quite a while, but we're starting to see an uptick now, and the severity of calls is increasing, just like Matt said.
Yeah, I think from Wayne County ALS's standpoint, we've seen an increased volume. It may be more related to the inability of other agencies to put on paramedic level care. And so we're going into areas that we've never gone into before pretty regularly, just because there's no paramedics out there for them to employ.
Yeah, we've seen in Victor, in Farmington, we've seen an uptick in calls. A lot of more serious respiratory calls is our numbers are the highest COVID patients in Ontario County right now. But we're still down from last year, but it's getting better. Like all the other agencies, I am seeing an uptick.
Yeah, I mean, anecdotally, lower volume, but relative higher acuity of the patients that are here. So intriguing.
That's what we're seeing at both sites with us as well. There's been a significant shifting of the the professional, even the professional leveling and the acuity of the patients. But our volume's still less than pre-COVID par, but not much. So, Dr. Cullinan, Clifton Springs.
Just general traffic considerations, always lots of construction going on. Today, they're doing some construction around the ED entrance. Still easy enough access for EMS, but just an FYI. Otherwise, really, we've seen a fair amount of transports going back and forth, from Clifton to RGH to Newark. Sometimes some Newark patients getting shifted over to Clifton due to volume. So appreciate all the EMS help in getting those folks back and forth. Otherwise, not a whole lot new from the Clifton end, but happy to field any questions or concerns Clifton related.
Thanks, James. Geneva and Soldiers and Sailors, I would just comment as well that as I mentioned, the acuity is going up, and interestingly, we've seen as we all noticed back with the shutdowns, wondering where the heart attacks and the strokes were going. Well, I think that they were sitting at home and people weren't modifying their risk factors, because we've given more alteplase and tenecteplase this year for STEMI and stroke than we ever have, and most of that is through the fall months. So certainly have seen an uptick of both sick and non-sick COVID patients at both sites. Not so much. I think we all anticipated that the universities would have exposure, but luckily didn't see much of that penetrate the ER. That's about all I have. Dr. Mitchell in Newark.
Unmute. Echoing the same as everyone else, our volume is slightly lower, but our patients are much sicker, prompting our transfers are sicker patients as well. But I think to EMS's benefit, also RGH and Unity are pretty full as well. So we're trying to keep sicker patients locally. So because of that, when they really truly do need to be transferred for ECMO or other advanced, they are going to be ill. So the other thing I wanted to just let you all know is we are bringing on a new EMS director here, Tyler LeMay, who has been working in our emergency department, will be starting 1st of December in the role as our EMS medical director. So I'm really excited. He's excited. He's going to be learning, and we'll start joining all of our in the future. So
thank you. So old business, SET protocols.
Dr. David, do you want to handle this, or do you want me to? So I had sent out the final draft of the SET protocols a couple weeks ago to all the docs and to the members of the committee. And I'm hoping that after reviewing them, I have not received any changes. So I'm hoping that it could be brought to a vote today to approve these protocols.
Mike, yeah, I talked to Jack after going through those, and unfortunately, I thought they looked really good, and I didn't have any great suggestions. So if there's any other comments or discussion on the protocols.
I have one small comment. You said they look really good. I think they look horrible. I'm working on formatting them properly. I just haven't had time to get all the way through 123 pages. No content is being changed. It's just bullet points going to the right place.
I only got about a quarter of what Jeremy just said. I don't know about anybody else.
Dr. Cullen, and he was just referring to the formatting of the protocols he was working on, but not changing the content of it.
Gotcha.
Basically, just make it look pretty, and the content will be the same.
Got it. Thanks.
So pending format reviews, John, would that be acceptable to take a motion to approve these?
Absolutely.
Well, I'll put forward a motion for approval.
I could have a second.
Second.
Any?
I second.
Okay.
Third.
So if there's no opposition, we'll consider those approved.
I agree.
Dr. Surratt's given a thumbs up.
Yeah, I like the thumbs up voting system. That's
Okay.
nice, Jamie.
I approve.
They are approved. Nitroglycerin protocol.
I believe that was I believe that was on hold pending a couple things. I know that that's being brought up. I believe at SEMSCO. I believe one of the issues we were having is trying to figure out what we're the dosage and the vials we have, but I believe that's being brought up at SEMSCO, if I read that correctly.
Yeah, the issue.
Ed, has there been any progress on the regulatory change with Part 800 at all? I know Director Greenberg was looking at an emergency reg change. I just didn't know if there was any progress that you were aware of.
We have, I don't have any update on that, Jason. I know that there's a lot of wheels in motion related to it. I know that, Mark Philippi and, others have collaborated with Bureau Director related to it. And I'll see if I can get an update for the next meeting.
So I would recommend that we just keep it tabled for now, and we'll bring it up again in January.
Yeah, Mike, we've got a CMAC at SEMSCO meeting on December 8th and 9th, so hopefully I might have something to bring back by the January meeting for some progress.
Yeah, that's cool. Just let me know.
Absolutely.
Okay, moving on. New business. There's a Tempest monitor demo listed here.
Yep. So that's going to be pushed to January. They mistaken the dates, and we're not prepared for today. So we'll do that again in January. The next.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Just with relation to that, we've always had an agreement at REMAC that product demonstrations would happen after the meeting's closed, not in the meeting. Can we stick to that precedent?
There was nothing written down anywhere, so that's why it was there.
John, would that be something that we could do at the ALS committee first, and then bring it, or just skip that and just go right to REMAC?
Well, that was put on at the request of Dr. Davidoff, so
Okay.
I will defer to Jack.
Do they have all parts of their monitor actually FDA approved now? Because I know we've had in-person demos from them in the past.
Yes, they do.
100% FDA approved.
Correct.
Awesome.
Well, moving on. The other item for new business is Silver Waters Ambulance. They submitted a packet to upgrade their level of service from the basic EMT level to the AEMT level. We have supporting documentation from their medical director, and town officials and such. They're looking to get the preliminary approval so that we can they can move forward in purchasing some equipment. If they didn't want to do that, they're looking at springtime in going forward, I believe it was. And I don't think there's any formal approvals then that are needed. It's more of a informational thing, unless there's specific comments or concerns.
I mean, right now they don't have an EEMT, right? They're just wanting to upgrade their level of potential care as opposed to actually.
Yeah, so they have, Jamie, they have a couple folks in the current AEMT class, and are looking to be able to provide more service to their community.
Yeah, I don't know if it needs approval, but I approve.
I think it's great.
Okay. And then the final item I have is we received a formal letter from Newark Arcadia Ambulance, decreasing their level of service to the EMT level. They've been in a position where they have not, due to some inspection issues from the Bureau, have not been allowed to practice ALS in the region for several months, and have finally decided to decrease their level of service.
How's that going to affect coverage for the area?
They've been in contact with the Wayne County ALS program and to reposition their cars.
So this is going to be a shared service with those two agencies for ALS calls?
Well, they'll use the tiered response. So you just use the county system for their ALS, or the hospital, whichever happens to be the closest.
As a CON holder, how's that work if we're in the area?
Mr. Majors, you want to pipe in about that?
Well, from a CON holder, has the ability to provide service if they're requested. So from a dispatch perspective, the agency has a responsibility to determine who they want to respond to their calls. Obviously, they're going with Wayne County ALS as the closest. We look at ALS as the closest, most appropriate. So from a dispatch perspective, their SOP, at this point is Wayne County ALS, which is they have an ALS first response for the entire county. So there's nothing, barring them from doing such, but they can enter into a backup agreement or anything else with any other preferred CON holder.
And Al, speaking as the 911 medical director, it's a fairly robust system for identifying the closest ALS available. I don't know if you're providing location information to 911. I know that the Wayne County cars do that, so they can look on the board. But we've been working for the last 2 years at the 911 center to send the closest, most appropriate. And you've been participating in some of these meetings as well, I know, or members of your organization. And it's been at EMS Advisory Council and lots of other ways. We're constantly trying to get the closest, most appropriate unit to the scene. So.
Dr. Surratt, no disrespect, but I attended one EMS advisory meeting for Wayne County. I'm concerned that Lyons is now talking about dropping their ALS. And being a primary CON holder, we're not involved in any of these conversations. I know there's a committee looking at the Wayne County EMS study that doesn't involve the region, or at least as far as I know, hasn't involved the region, as well as, us as a CON holder. I don't think there is any clear definition of primary CON holders. Maybe Ed can touch on that. We want to work to make the system better, but we also need to be included in these conversations.
Al, if I may.
I'll communicate that. Sorry, Ed. I'll
Oh, no,
communicate that to the. I'll go. I mean, I can communicate that to the discussions being held at 911. I mean, 911 is committed to sending the closest, most appropriate vehicle. It obviously requires participation from the agencies in providing the up-to-date and appropriate information, and some agencies have been very resistant to provide that.
If I may, from the state's perspective, our position certainly is closest, most appropriate is the right thing for the patient. We always look at closest, most appropriate with operating authority over somebody who does not have authority. However, in a mutual aid situation, as long as it's not routine and ongoing, certainly the closest, most appropriate would be acceptable if a primary CON holder is not available. So we look at it as closest, most appropriate with authority, unless it's an ALS first response type situation. Fly car, it gets a little bit blurry as we talk through all those issues, but I think the best way to describe it is, closest, most appropriate ALS with authority.
And I think that, another thing that I want to make clear is that a lot of these agencies are making their decisions by themselves on whether to provide service at the paramedic level, and often the county is put in a position where we simply get a phone call and get told that that they won't be doing that, and we have to scramble as well. So we're all in the same situation.
Yeah, from the Wayne County ALS point of view, I mean, we're not in a position to take care of all of the ALS needs of Newark currently, for sure. So the other agencies will need to help. I mean, we do some crew share and some other things for Newark at their request, but we can't just instantly take all their ALS volume, and we have no intention of doing that right now. We do the best we can when the agencies request us, because the taxpayers pay for us, and that's what we'll continue to do to the best of our ability. But we're never going to take everything, and we have no intention of doing so.
Ed, as we all face challenges with interfacility transports, and when, Ross had sent me some of the state statute in the past in regarding to CON at a transferring facility. So if agency X has the only CON at your hospital, and they are unable to provide that transfer in a reasonable, timely manner, can you just clarify what the what the expectation would be? Are we allowed then to request without agency X asking for mutual aid, another agency to transport that patient?
We get these types of questions a lot, and the state's position is very clear. It should be a CON provider over a non-CON provider. So if there's multiple, CONs often overlap. So there are agencies that have, sort of dual jurisdiction or dual CON territories. But as a matter of preference, as long as they're a CON provider, they can, provide service. In a situation where there are no CON providers available, an urgent situation or a situation in which the patient's got to get to tertiary care, the state's position has always been that the hospital has attempted to get service from a CON provider. That CON provider is not available, and they can go to the next closest, most appropriate resource in that situation. Now, the challenge with that is that we want to make sure that it's not just because we like agency B and they're out there, so we're going to try to bypass the CON holders. So, from an enforcement standpoint, if we get somebody who's routinely and almost on a daily basis using a non-CON holder over a CON holder, then we would expect that the entity, does it legally, that they would do attempt for an expansion of territory, or, perhaps there's a need for, there's a ton of different CON options, such as municipal CON, those kind of components. But we would give input on that. But if the primary CON holders, if all CON holders that have authority are not able to provide that service, then we would say go to the next closest, most appropriate, as long as the patient indicates that they've got to get to tertiary care, or it's something that is not like a scheduled routine event that could be postponed. So that's been our take across the state. And we do monitor those situations, Doc. If all of a sudden, we've had, I'll give you a couple examples in Erie County where on the Chautauqua border, of course, that facility has since closed, but there was a small independent agency that was routinely going over because the commercial providers weren't able to provide service to that hospital. And, that entity ended up doing an expansion of territory and gaining that territory so that they could legally provide the service. So, if it becomes routine and daily, we want to see if, resources could be reallocated. We'll talk to the CON provider or, holders to say, hey, look, you're underservicing this area. The hospital has, reached out to us, and we'll try to bridge those gaps if we can, and provide some suggestions to solve those types of problems. But we don't want to get into a situation in which people are, bypassing the CON holder and going to an agency that doesn't have operating authority, because we know that CONs are, the legal provider for that particular area. So I hope I've clarified that, but that's our stance on it. We do that all across the state.
It helps. Thank you.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, just as an aside, I mean, the other concern I think that we have from Wayne County ALS's standpoint is with Newark decreasing their level of provision of service, we're constantly resource limited in Wayne County anyway, and oftentimes the county car is the only car available for ALS anywhere in the county. We really struggle with the issue of interfacility transfer in that situation, because we don't want to leave our county uncovered to 911 responses, but we have seen a slight uptick in requests for our paramedics as ALS first responders to do interfacility transports. And, I think that this is an increasing issue as the availability of advanced providers is becoming less. So we have to prioritize our county and our 911 response at our agency, which may mean the hospitals have to develop a more robust transport facility, or transport service, essentially.
I think that's my big concern across the board is, we are literally passing each other on some of these calls, or someone's taking a transfer because we aren't available, and then we're sending a rig to cover their territory. I guess I want to know who can really sit down and figure out a plan for that. Does the REMAC have the authority, as I was under the impression under statute, for triage, dispatch, transportation, to set up a plan so we can work through this? Or is this, municipal based, or who really has the authority to put something this together so we can manage a system? Because right now we're not managing anything. There's constant calls from hospitals that need to get patients out, whether it's stat transfers or scheduled STEMI transfers, or from hospitals to home, that if we're not available because the system's busy, that they're calling, we'll use Newark to go do a BLS transfer or whatever, and then Newark's uncovered and Wayne County has a fly car, no ambulance, and we're going out there to cover the calls, which now takes another rig out of the system. I really think that we can manage it with what we got, so we can plan ahead to get more providers. But I think we all need to be in agreement. We need to create a system. If one county does one thing or one agency does another, it's not going to work.
Almost sounds like we need a transfer center or a transfer resource.
I don't think it's just transfers.
Transportation. Someone who can keep track of what the resources are and make better use of them.
I think the only people really capable of doing that is on a regional basis. I don't think it is county based. And I think, Ed, correct me if I'm wrong, the region does have that authority, correct?
I mean, I think the regional council has a responsibility for the EMS system as a whole. So the regional council and certainly the REMAC has the medical component of that. Here's the situation, Alan. I say this who gets dispatched in a particular municipal jurisdiction. Those things become from the politician side, the municipality has the authority to dispatch who they want or to contract with who they feel is the best provider. As long as, from our perspective, the OH perspective, we look at it to make sure that they legally have operating authority. There's a comptroller position, you get into a whole bunch of things related to, okay, can the municipality, both municipalities and fire districts are, have governmental or municipal authority, and, who can decide over the other as to who can dispatch what resources in their particular area. But from a regional perspective, integrating, with the 901 system and, from a rug card perspective, or some counties have taken the approach. I use an example of Livingston County of closest, most appropriate with authority, but also they've developed a system in which the dispatch center will not continually tone agency A, then agency B, agency C. They're sending staff resources to deploy to emergency responses. So integration of the non-emergency side or the interfacility side and the 911 side sometimes becomes a bit, tricky, but the regional council ultimately does have responsibility and oversight, but the agencies and the agency participation with the EMS coordinator and other county resources.
Do you think it would be a good idea to have an agency leader meeting? Maybe with either all the big agencies in the region or all agencies to see if we can hammer this out or something, because it just doesn't affect the bigger agencies. It does affect the smaller agencies. And I think that, the agency leaders really haven't had a chance to sit down and talk and try to iron some of these things out. And I think that might be appropriate.
Yeah, I certainly do. I think from an agency leadership perspective, either a DO's meeting or an operations manager's meeting or agency level participation in that type of a meeting to come up with, hey guys, every rural area is dealing with a scarcity of resources. And, from the state's perspective, are there things that we can do better to regionalize the system or to optimize the system, and basically enhance it? But you guys got to fix it. You guys got to come up. You've got to cooperate. You've got to, collaborate to strengthen the system. That's really, and certainly sometimes it's tough to acknowledge that. Hey, look, there's a ton of EMS agencies out there that are struggling to provide one ambulance during the day or any ambulance during the day, and anything we can do to optimize that system, and it's got to come from the agency cooperation, collaboration, and doing what's in the best interest of the system legally, of course. But I think there's a good chance of you guys solving that by just working together.
And I just want to clarify, ultimately, that is the region's responsibility, correct?
Yeah, the regional council has authority to, basically oversight of the EMS system. Yeah, we have the regulatory side. The regional EMS council ultimately makes determinations related to system system performance and monitoring the system, and those components. I can certainly get you the definition if you need it a little bit further. But agencies have responsibilities, municipalities have responsibilities. Medical director have oversight of the medical side, REMAC authority. So obviously, as we integrate and look at it, the regional council ultimately does have responsibility to ensure that the EMS system is functioning appropriately.
With that being said, is there any way that REMAC could approve a subcommittee to look into all this? So all players are included in these meetings and discussions? Just because we're the quote unquote bigger commercial agency doesn't mean we aren't in the same boat as everybody else. This isn't about takeover. This is about providing a service. When Wayne County's ALS vehicle's out of service in Newark on a call, that's leaving part of their county stripped, and we're going to have to be able to move resources. If there's no communication, it's not going to happen.
Al, I'd recommend that comes from the regional council, but certainly the REMAC could do it also with reporting up to the regional council.
Al, is Finger Lakes now providing location information to the 911 center in Wayne County so that we can send the closest resource?
I don't think Finger Lakes has ever supplied that information. We're currently in the process of putting it in all our vehicles, and my every intent is to share that. But I also don't think that should be regulated by just Wayne County. I really think we need to start taking a regional approach on these problems, because it affects the smaller agencies, not only the bigger ones. I mean, history throughout the state is, you get a big agency and who has more resources, i.e. more money, to start dumping into stuff. You're going to start stealing providers from one agency to another. You're going to start us putting rigs in a CON area that is also covered by a smaller agency. The only thing it's doing is hurting these agencies. I don't want to see any of these agencies go away. We need everybody to work together. I just don't think we're doing a good job at that.
As a clarifying point, if you're talking about the status board, which is what we've been told needs to be filled out, that does get filled out routinely every shift. As far as GPS location, like your cars might have, that's what Al's talking about.
Yeah, I think the status board is a useful tool for knowing who's in service, like, what resources are scheduled that day. But the status board doesn't give you any information on if that unit is actually available. You could have 17 units signed into the status board and 16 of them are on jobs. So technically, to the dispatch center, it looks like there's 17 units available. And there's no crossover between like a county's CAD and that status board that dictates that 16 of those units are assigned. So realistically, out of those 17, one of them is available. So the status board is a useful tool, sort of, to tell you who's out there, but it doesn't really give you real-time updates of what resources are available and what resources are not. So the status board is partially useful.
I agree with Jason. I know that we have tried in the past in Ontario County because we had a difficult time with resources, especially with RSI and SCT. And we have been told numerous times that there will never be a status board in Ontario County. They just don't have the time or the resources to do that. And not many people look at the Monroe County status board if they're not in Monroe County. I'm having that problem with Monroe County almost daily, that they don't follow the run cards, and we are statused on the status board like we're supposed to be, and they're sending agencies 30 miles away to an address that's 500 feet outside my district. So, I mean, this is an issue that's been going on for years.
Right. I would say that, Mike, that Wayne County's the dispatch office has been pretty darn good about at least rolling over to the next one that's signed in service. But, like I said, as far as knowing who's actually in service and not on a job, that status board doesn't do that.
Right. Practically, I use it as, being the only RSI provider on my shift at Finger Lakes, I kind of use it to gauge, do I need to be in Palmyra or Geneva for the night? But that's realistically the only use.
Yeah, I think that the issue is that it's hard to complain that the closest ambulance is not being sent when you won't tell us where your ambulances are. From a 911 standpoint, we take the best information that we have and use it to the best of our abilities. But You know, all of the county cards are now on GPS locators because we recognized it was important to send the closest, most appropriate. So we know where all the county cards are at the 911 center. We often don't know where all the other ambulances are, other than whether they're in service or not.
Yeah, Dr. Surratt, I don't want to come across that I don't think Wayne County's not doing their job. That's not my intent at all. I just think as a region, we really need to create a system because we really do not have one. It is honestly, depending on who's the dispatcher on some situations, who's available, not knowing where this stuff is, you know, these are big problems. These are huge problems. There's nothing worse when you get a call for a critical patient that needs to go out of a hospital, but we're running and we're doing a toothpaste call because it's the closest available ambulance, whether it's ALS or BLS. You know, there is no way to triage our system.
Well, there's lots of weaknesses. I mean, it's just as bad when you have an ambulance that they say is going from one location, then it subsequently comes from miles away, and there was a closer agency available.
That's my point.
This is a regional argument that goes back, Matt, you'll remember this. It goes back to the days of Finger Lakes and Ocals in Ontario County.
Yep.
And it's no better now with different players than it was before. And I like the idea of that Ed and Al and others have kind of put together about, you know, having an agency leadership meeting and maybe coming up with some kind of a regional issue in this. I don't have a fix for it. I just know that it's been a problem that's been ongoing for at least 2 decades, and it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, at least. I don't know if it's this council's place to take a subcommittee on it, but I think we should have an agency leadership meeting probably sooner than later. But I don't see any problem with having a subcommittee of this body to deal with this.
I think we should have a leadership meeting before we just create another committee that may go somewheres or nowheres and just honestly waste people's time. I think part of the problem that all the agencies are having is I don't disagree with Al. There's a lot of smaller agencies that are having trouble getting crews out the doors, which now we're covering them. But in the same token, I think the larger agencies, which for Ontario County really is, in my opinion, right, wrong, or indifferent, is Finger Lakes and Canandaigua. Because we're covering so many other people, we're actually starting to become stretched too thin. Mm-hmm. I've had a lot of talks with Ed because we've had a lot of hospitals keep calling us at Canandaigua to try to go to whether it's Clifton or Newark or Geneva. And as an agency leader, in my honest opinion, you know, that's LCON and for Finger Lakes. And part of the problem isn't that I don't want to help a patient, but there comes a time where I also need to understand that I have to serve the hospital that's in my area, and I can't spread myself too thin because, like Al says, it makes no sense for me to go to Clifton Springs Hospital or Geneva Hospital, and now I'm stretched so thin I have no crews. Now Al's Finger Lakes rigs have to come into the city to cover our calls. And that can get dangerous, especially when the weather starts turning here with snow and ice for all the crews. You know, and I feel bad for saying no to these other hospitals, but I also think it's good working relationships with the ambulances to talk to each other and work with each other. And, you know, I know what's in Al's backyard and Al knows what's in my backyard. And I think we respect that. And, you know, as long as everybody keeps working together, the hardest part is how do we step up these smaller agencies to take care of their calls or work closer to the larger agencies next to them. So, you know, what Canandaigua needs to know what to staff, what Al needs to know what to staff. And so we can budget for those things, not just these surprise things. I have to cover half your calls for half of the year. And then to me, it causes some issues. I don't know, you know, what Al thinks, but it stretches us out.
Yeah, Matt, I think the impetus for these calls, and I understand, you know, the challenges that everyone faces, but it's the ED doc that's sitting, you know, at 10 o'clock with a patient that may not be, you know, critically ill at the time, but may have, you know, a perforated bowel or some type of like ascending biliary infection, who now 6, 7, 8 hours later, could become floridly septic. So it's just, the docs are just reaching out to try to do the best thing for their patients. And I think after hearing some of the discussion that it would be a great idea to get leadership at the agencies together, because like Jason mentioned, it sounds like this has been going on for 20 years.
Absolutely. And my hope is if we have this agency leadership meeting, that it has better turnout than the RSI, not the RSI, but the Advanced Practice Committee that's supposed to have a representative from all ALS agencies in the region. I hope this agency leadership meeting has a little bit better participation, because frankly, this issue probably could have been handled at the ALS committee if more than 5 of the same agencies showed up to the meeting on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, I agree. It's the same people that come, and I have no problem with spearheading this, sending emails to everybody, whether we want to have it, region-wide, county-wide. I personally, my personal thing would be county-wide first, then regional-wide second, but that's up for debate. But I think it's a good idea.
I'd agree with that to a point. I'm wondering if there could be a joint communication, like a letter / email, whatever, that maybe might come from the executive board of the region. And I don't know if it's something that Ed, with you as the DOH rep, could be a co-signer on it or something, saying that this is highly encouraged attendance or something to that regard, that it'd be nice to get everybody around the computer monitor. I know we're not going to get around a table, but it'd be nice to get everybody around a computer monitor to start to have this dialogue.
Yeah, Jason, I think that'd be fine. I think look, you guys got to be able to solve this. This is a regional issue. It's an agency issue. You've got to getting everybody together, and you got to have some specific objectives, though. You don't want to just have a shotgun approach related to it. So I think coming up with an agenda and some objectives related to it, and then I think the other component is really integrating the dispatch. Data really drives the system, and I wouldn't step away from the data, and not to highlight that agency A hasn't been able to respond to so many calls, or to call them out publicly or anything to that effect, but to say, hey, look, let's identify the key issues and come up with some kind of solution for them as to a neighboring entity. Maybe we at the state level, when we look at all the hospital systems, right? Look at how many have merged, and EMS is way behind in that regard, relating to, because nobody wants to give up their identity, and we've got turf wars, and we've got all types of issues. But I think the objective of getting everybody into the room, into a Zoom meeting or whatever, have specific objectives, and get some of those issues out on the table to try to strengthen it. But I think getting data from the dispatch centers, communicating that data, openly sharing information, and then working with your county emergency managers, EMS coordinators, and dispatch leads, along with the agency leads, would be a good incremental step towards strengthening something.
Sounds like a good starting place. If anyone has any further discussion on this, perhaps we can move this forward with as Ed mentioned, having some objectives and having an agenda for specifics that we would like to see done. But if not, yep.
I think we're going to need to start with a small group to set up that list of what we want to discuss amongst the bigger group who we want to invite. So I don't necessarily think we need a subcommittee, but I think we need a small group to get together soon to come up with that list of how we're going to proceed.
I'm particularly a fan of the agency leadership meeting first.
But you want an agenda even for that?
Hey, when was the
Guys,
last
I gotta
time
get going. I have a fire call. Thank you.
Yep.
Here, guys.
When was the last time the 4 county
Dinger.
coordinators in the region sat down together?
a
Just
while.
curious. Has it ever
Jason, I
happened?
couldn't hear you.
I'm a
Could you
little
say that
curious.
again?
I think it's been a couple of years.
We have 2 active EMS coordinators that are always at this meeting, Bill and Deb. We used to see Chris from Yates County, and when Chris moved, we've seen nothing from Yates County. And Seneca, I think Jeff Case might be the EMS coordinator down there. I don't know. That might be a place to start, just saying.
Yates doesn't have one yet.
There we go.
I don't think it has to be anything elaborate. Well, can't we just have John set up a meeting and send it out to all the agency leaders and we can meet?
Yeah, even if the focus of that meeting is to discuss what the objectives will be for a subcommittee to look at, like there has to be a starting point somewhere. I just think it would be nice if all the agency leadership just when's the last time we all kind of got together?
Yeah, I'd agree with Brian. I think John, if you send out an email or if you send me the email addresses, I can coordinate it. Let's just get together and talk. I mean, I'm hoping that all the agencies show up, but it's probably going to be the bigger agencies that are there, but it's a starting point.
And if we got to keep having them, then keep having them. Like the problem's not going to go away. So, I mean, we have nothing but time here to meet and discuss.
Maybe we should keep having them. I mean, maybe that's part of the problem where maybe the agencies themselves from us, with Air Medical and everybody, maybe we're not getting enough of a platform to actually communicate, what's causing issues with all of us.
And really, there's nothing keeping us from doing that other than just not doing it. So, yeah, I might as well add another meeting to your schedule.
The good news is there's no travel required.
John, are you still on?
I am.
Okay. Does that sound acceptable as a starting point to at least identify some objectives and then perhaps move forward with a smaller group?
Sure. I can send out a Zoom request for a meeting to the agency leadership, at least the ones that I have on file.
Okay.
Down here in Yates County, we'll send somebody out on horseback to deliver the message.
And Matt, I think Donna has a quick little report she wants to do.
Sure.
You're not talking. Donna, you're muting. You're muted. Try talking.
I've got to jump on to another meeting, but if there's anything that I can do to help related to that from a systems perspective, I'd be glad to join those agency meetings that have a state perspective if you would like. I don't think anybody wants to just meet, but I think that even if we were to get each agency's top 3 concerns, sort of identified, that might be helpful to try to move something forward and try to work together to strengthen the system. So thanks a lot. If I can help in any way, let me know. Also, just from a regional perspective, just real quickly, I don't want to cut anybody off, but we from the Western region. I've gained Brian Weedman. He's going to be assigned permanently to the Western region now, which is good. It's a sort of it's good. I think, okay, now I've got 3 people in our region, but in actuality, what they've done is they've taken Don Trepez and they put him into emergency preparedness and response role from a statewide perspective. Him and Mike Lenahan from Merrill region will be doing that. So I'll have Don Trepez about 1 day a week, and then I'll have Brian Weedman for the rest of the period. So we'll look at how we're going to restructure counties and that kind of stuff, but that's just some information that's a bit of positive news. So thank you all for your help, and keep the faith. Stay COVID free.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. If nobody has any objections, real quick, while we're on that topic, I just want to mention this before I lose it from Ed's point. Is John, when we send out that invite to the agency leadership, do we maybe ask them to?
Jason, you're really faint.
How about now?
A little better.
All right. So when we send out that invitation for this EMS agency leadership meeting, do we ask them to identify their 3 most important key issues in their response to that meeting? And that way we have some talking points for that first meeting?
Sure.
Awesome.
Right. Any other new business?
Just me.
Oh, hi, Jeff. Yep.
So I just want to report quickly on the fall classes. We have some that are going to be taking the practical exam on December 5th. Some will be finishing up on January 9th. The AEMT class goes until March. We're working on spring classes now. We've been urged not to start anything before the 1st of February to see how this COVID is going to move over the holiday seasons. So I'm working on those schedules as well. I do have one issue though that I would like to bring up, and all the agencies will be involved in this, is I have students who are coming to me that are complaining about the fact that preceptors are not allowing them to take manual blood pressures, and then they will not give them the numbers off of the machines because they're saying to the students, well, you didn't do the blood pressure, so I don't have to give it to you. One of the issues that is a problem with that is because these students are not learning how to take a manual blood pressure and do it accurately. And what happens is when they come to the practical exam, they are failing because they're only allowed to be within 10 points. And the students are coming back and complaining about the ALS agencies not allowing them to do a manual blood pressure or working with them. So being that is said, if we get more complaints, we'll have to take a look at the preceptors and or the agencies and find out who or who is not playing with the game. Again, vitals are important. I know when we go into the ED, everything is on machines, and with the 12s and whatever we're going to use, a lot of that is done. But again, we need to know that these people really can do hands-on manual when they get down dirty and playing in the ditches. Just to let you know from Jake, junior paramedics are moving through. We're trying to get through some clinicals so that they can move on in the spring and keep going. We are having some difficulty though. We were just notified by Rochester that there will be no RT client time allowed in Newark, Clifton, or Rochester Regional. And I know we had some issues earlier in the QA/QI, so RT will be out of RRH at this point in time. We are working with them with Geneva, and hopefully we'll get something with Thompson at that point. Paramedic committee meeting was supposed to be for today, and it has been postponed. Hopefully Jake will have something more in January 21. Accreditation should have be planned for this coming summer. We are hearing that some of that's going to be taken care of virtually rather than all on-site visits due to obviously COVID and the fact that there is such a backup of programs wanting to get their accreditation done. So that may be something new in the issues coming up through. And that's basically my report, unless anybody's got any questions.
Donna, it's Brian. Okay. Are you reaching out to agencies individually about the vitals issues?
Yes, I've left a couple of phone call messages with people on their phones, and someone has not called, and people have not called me back so that we can discuss this. Brian, you know me well enough. If it's your agency, I'm going to be right down your throat.
No, I just wanted to double check because I actually my mouth opened when you said that people literally aren't letting students take manual vitals.
Correct.
Really?
And I understand.
That's so bizarre.
I fully understand that if it's an emergent call, and we've talked to students, you know, if the provider, ALS provider says to them, we don't have time, let's move, that they're understood they're supposed to do that. But when they're doing the call, they're automatically going to that automatic cuff and putting that on, and then they never really get a chance to take an actual one. Or if they're asking for the report when they get done, I need the vitals to fill in my book, they're being told by the preceptors, well, these aren't your vitals, so we don't have to give them to you. It's like, well, we got to complete the chart so the student knows what they're doing.
Oh, it's so bizarre. Okay, thank you.
It is. And it's unnecessary. I agree.
Well, it's completely lazy, but that's beside the point.
But again, my biggest problem is when they come to their practical at the end, they're failing because there is a actual section where the basics actually have to take the blood pressure on the patient lying on the floor, and they just can't do it. So, and we're working with them in class and everything else like that to try to get them, they're taking, each other's vitals or going home and taking them on their parents or whoever and stuff like that. So.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Dr. Talbot, I just got one more thing I forgot to do. I wanted to just take the time to recognize and introduce everybody to my new associate medical director who's on, Dr. Kayla Dewey out of Strong Memorial. She's great. She's helping us out and she's helping Dr. Brecker out a lot. I just wanted to introduce her because I know she's going to be at these meetings a lot.
Thanks, Mike. I was just about to do that. Hi, I'm Kayla Dewey. I'm just faculty at Strong, work mostly at Strong, a little bit at Strong West. So familiar more with the U of R system side of things. And great to meet all of you virtually. And let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Thanks so much.
Welcome. Thanks, Kayla.
Matt, do you want to let everyone know that you'll have another doctor that will be joining our REMAC committee here this spring? AJ?
Yep. So Dr. AJ Shi is, I think Dr. Dewey probably knows him. He is a third-year resident at Strong's residency program and will be actually joining our team at Finger Lakes Health next July. But he will be, he has had prior EMS experience and has expressed interest in participating. So we're thrilled about that.
AJ's great. Just putting that out there.
Good. I got. I think I told someone. I don't think I've ever gotten such great review comments on somebody. So we're excited to have him. If there's nothing else for today, I would take a motion for adjournment. I think a lot of the docs stepped off. So
seconded.
Yeah, your two, Dr. Dewey and Dr. Montesano, it looks like.
Yeah, I'll make a motion for adjournment.
Okay.
Seconded.
Thank you. Jack, drive safe.
It is snowing like crazy down here. I don't know if you guys are going to get it or not, but be prepared.
What state are you in?
He should be coming through Pennsylvania right now.
Oh, okay.
And Jack, just so you know, I know you're not going to catch any fish there.